If they somehow the people got the power back, had the ability, where politicians, like you said, would then become, if they knew they weren't getting any kind of favors and couldn't just do what they wanted for these corporations, if they didn't have the ability to make things happen for the corporations, are these corporations going to give them, hundreds of millions of dollars to get in the office when they know that they're not going to be able to get them paid back?
Yeah,
they're not going to be able to just pass things through that they want. The only way that they would be able to do it is to convince the whole public of it, and basically then you would just so that might cut that out right there. But I think ultimately you may end up to the point where, as you just mentioned, where then the people getting into office are truly doing it because they want to serve.
Sure.
They want to serve the whole for the better good. They want to do and kind of what we touched base on last week again, how right now these politicians, they get in there, they don't do anything that they promise they're going to do. They don't do anything that they, supposedly the people are voting them in there for to do. Then they champion a single issue in the final year, ham it all up. People vote for them again, and when you ask, like, well, they didn't do anything, why'd you vote for them again? Oh, there was nobody else, to vote for, or this other person. We got so few choices, the other person, was even worse. That's
Right.
usually what you hear. I voted for this person because the other person was worse. And it's like, not that I really wanted this person.
Right.
Not all applicants will qualify. Secure Rights is not a lender. All rates are examples based on APR of 5.53%. Lender decisions contingent on credit application. Rates and terms will vary by lender and are subject to change.
Attention, all homeowners stuck in high interest rate mortgages. Are you finding it harder and harder to keep up with your monthly mortgage payments? Homeowners can now apply for FHA 30-year fixed rates around 4.875%. By refinancing now, you can consolidate debt, lower your mortgage payment, or get cash. Again, qualified applicants can now refinance their current high interest rate mortgage to a fixed rate around 4.875%. You could save hundreds of dollars a month. Homeowners may now call to find out about these low fixed rates.
Call 1-877-407-9414. These rates may only be available for a limited time, so act now. To take advantage of these historically low rates, call 1-877-407-9414. For free information, call 1-877-407-9414. 1-877-407-9414.
Sarah Palin is dangerous to the establishment because she's not entrenched in its corruption. All the news.
But imagine, just try to imagine a world or a country where your politicians were basically just there saying anybody could try to put forward a law and that they thought was good, but then no law would get passed unless the American public voted on it.
Sure.
And then people were like, oh, that's going to be too much. I said in the beginning, yeah. Imagine, I said, but what I would love to see is imagine in the beginning if you just took every single law that was out there,
Mm-hmm.
whether state level or federal level, and said, okay, they're all up for whether or not they're going to be kept.
Right.
And then basically the American public would then have to look at it. You could literally just clean up a lot of this stuff that people don't want, a lot of laws that or still in the books from the 1800s, and people are like, why do we even have that law?
Right.
And that would be another thing, and then every so often, laws, they should have a lifetime before they're kind of brought back up again and said, hey, do we still want to have this law? As a public, do we still want to keep this law, or has it become outdated and not with our times anymore?
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, just those comments you made just made me go on that whole rant because I was just thinking about that.
Sure. The only thing you can't do with that, though, is you have to clean up the corruption in Washington before you do that. Because if you do it without cleaning up the corruption in Washington, what you're going to get is people lobbying to get the laws that benefit them.
Right.
And
right, and like I said, and here's what I ultimately see. The downside I would ultimately see is the fact that you would end up possibly after, at first I think you could actually be productive if the public got behind it and said, yeah, we want to have control. We don't want the people in charge and the politicians just doing what they want, and then we sit there and have to react to what they're doing. That, I'm sure, a lot of people don't want to pay attention, but I bet you don't you think more people would pay attention and more people would vote if they actually thought that their vote counted?
Truthfully, no, because people are lame and stupid and lazy. I honestly don't. I think
there would be a part that still wouldn't, because they just they're not concerned. But I think there's a whole section out there that would pay more attention, and the reason that they don't now is because they don't feel that they have any control or any power or any way to do something different. And if they thought like, okay, now they're literally just counting the votes, so every vote does count.
Right.
I think there's a group that would suddenly come to life and start paying attention and and find an interest. There's still the other side, the lazy side, that it's like,
Well, but you know what, dude? And those are the people I don't want to vote in the first place, because they're never going to be they're never going to be informed. They're never going to take the time to so much as read a stupid article on the web or in a newspaper or whatever to actually know something about what they're voting on. Shoot, our last presidential campaign was one. Nobody knew a damn thing about what Obama had actually stood for. No one vetted this guy, but they all wanted hope and change, so we're going to give him a vote. Lame.
Right, but like I said, so maybe, when people say that, I would say, okay, so maybe Obama didn't get elected on his own merit.
Yeah.
But then it just kind of goes to show how bad Bush was.
Well, true.
And that's kind of sad. It's like, dude, you were so bad that he just voted for this other guy because he said something different. We're going to do something different.
Dude, that campaign went 100% because the guy came off like a rock star, and you ended up with younger generation vote based solely on the fact that, hey, look at this guy, he's on the Tonight Show, and he's cracking wise with David Letterman and Jay Leno, and he's hip, he's cool. Nobody actually looked at the fact that the guy didn't show up to do any of his voting in the Senate. He's a piece of garbage, and they just voted him in because they wanted something different. And I agree with your point that it does make a statement about the Bush administration, but at the same time, better or worse, and I think McCain was a horrible candidate as well, and I think picking Sarah Palin, who nobody had heard of, was ridiculous.
And why did they pick her?
Just going for a chick vote. That's what they were doing.
Right. Don't you think it's because when Obama didn't team up with Clinton,
right?
And they thought, I think the Republican side thought, oh wow, what a lost opportunity for them, because everybody thought that. If you recall, everybody thought that was going to happen.
Right.
That the Clinton era, people were reminiscing for the Clinton era again, and then basically they're, if he teamed up with Hillary, that would almost, they were kind of calling it almost kind of like the dream team. Right. And then he didn't choose her, and I just thought the GOP reacted like, oh, he didn't do that, and we were hearing how many people wanted like a woman in charge, so let's just go find this woman who nobody really heard of.
Right, and that's really what it was. And that was the downfall, was, she did one good speech, and then the media tore her apart. Because she wasn't ready.
She didn't know anything.
Well, she wasn't ready. She wasn't ready. I mean, dude, there's a certain...
She's still not ready when I hear her.
Her talk. I certainly wouldn't vote for her for president, that's for sure, and I'd be a little scared to have her in the second chair. There's no question about that. But you want the truth? I have no sense of security with putting Rick Perry or Michelle Bachmann or Newt Gingrich or anybody else in that chair. I hate to say it, but if I had my way, we just wouldn't have a president for 4 years until we find a good candidate.
And this again is, how we just have so limited choices, because we got the bipartisans, and what do? They basically, have a little vote to see who's going to run. Mm-hmm. It's like who's going to be our leading candidate, who's going to run, and it's just kind of like, well, why can't you have more than one person running? Why do you have to get it down to one person running for, supposedly for that whole party, especially today, when even the parties don't agree within themselves.
Right.
You know, you have crossovers all the time, and you would think that would almost make a kind of a better government, that, you know, that within the two parties you know, you have people that aren't necessarily, you know, fully right or left, but it sure doesn't seem to be working at all that way either. It just, you know.
Right. Well, dude,
I just think it's all a mess, you know.
Well, dude, there's a reason that there's only two parties, and that's because it polarizes the money. And see, watch me how I pull this back into our discussion. By having only Republicans and Democrats, you only make the corporations choose A or B, or not choose at all, but only have to fund two candidates, which a lot of them do. I guarantee you there was GE money going to both Republicans and Democrats in 2008. I guarantee that.
Well, yeah, because I guarantee if you look, even with a huge corporation like that, if they want it to fund them both, they'll just use a branch, you know, a subsidiary or, you know, a sibling company, and claim that, you know, well, they're doing what they want, you know, and our company or the parent company is doing what they want. Act like we don't have a decision over what they're, you know, doing. But full well, you would know that, yeah, they did. That's just a way to fund them without it making it look like we're funding both sides.
Right, but if it was individual candidates, well, then now you're talking 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 different choices. You know what I mean? You're not talking only about two places to put your money. You're talking about spreading it around wide. And that causes a problem for the lobbyists and the corporations. You know, how is a lobbyist going to put their support behind somebody when they have to vet 8 to 10 candidates to see who they can control?
But I'm just thinking, if there's 8 to 10 candidates, how's that going to affect all these lazy people you're talking about who don't even want to think about the two?
Well, but dude, you can't govern your country based on the stupidness of the people. You can't do that. You cannot, if we're going to, unless we want to just accept the fact that we are a lowest common denominator country, then you can't base how you elect your leaders based on the lowest common denominator. You have to have an expectation of the stupid stepping up and at least getting themselves educated to what's going on in the world. Period.
Yeah. And I always thought that that's actually, you know, I always thought that was one of the problems that we have in America, is that we pander to the weakest link. How do you keep a country strong if you're constantly trying to make everything easier so that everybody can have it? It's like, well, wait a minute. You're supposed to keep your standards a little higher so that, you know, we're certainly a big enough and at least we're a rich enough country that we could take care of the people who couldn't keep up, you know, so that they weren't, you know, there. But yeah, I don't know. You know, we constantly just seem like we just constantly lowering our standards. You know, make it easier for people. Oh, this, you know, it's not fair to these people. Why is it not fair? Yeah. You know, but at the same time, if you don't clean up the government, you don't clean up the corruption, then I guess it isn't fair, because all the power goes to these big corporations. Right. You know, they got the money, they got the time, they can wait out the small people. You know, so yeah, I don't know, but it's just I was just sitting there thinking about, you know, the way you think most people are just lazy and stupid. And I'm like, well, now if they got more choices, they're gonna be like, you know, I really don't want to think about it.
Well, then don't. Then sit on the sidelines and shut up. You know, I mean, that's what drives me crazy, is people that don't participate, they don't learn, and then they feel like they should have a valid opinion. Well, you don't get one. You know, look, and here's where I jump off from the whole world. Unless you've served, I think anybody that served in the military or government or in some capacity should get 2 votes instead of 1, if you want the truth, because we've put in the time. You know, you've put in the time and the effort to make the country better, where you didn't just lay around and take a check. You know what I mean? I honestly think that. And as far as pandering to the stupid and to the lowest common denominator, what do they do in other countries with their lowest common denominator? I think in a lot of countries they kill them, don't they? You can't keep up, you're dead.
I don't know. Can you name a country or
China.
Two that does that?
China.
Yeah, do they?
Yeah, dude. You can't keep up in the sweatshop, what happens to you? You get too old, what do? They throw you off a cliff in some ritualistic nonsense. That's what they do.
It's Logan's Run.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
yeah,
and I don't know that
I didn't know about that, but
yeah, I don't know that I'm advocating necessarily killing the old and the lame, but at the same time, you can't. What I'm really trying to say here is you can't base policy on that.